Hi, I'm Hal Kerfis. I'm Executive Vice President of Scalzo Commercial and New Development. And I've done a number of podcasts in the past. And during the process of giving these, actually recording these podcasts, people have asked me certain questions afterwards. And so the purpose of this podcast is to answer a few of those questions, and perhaps we can pick up on the rest of them the next time around. The first question is, what is happening with the office market? Is it as bad as they say? And actually, it's fortunate because I just had an article published on this subject and published in various newspapers. And that question came up there too. Actually, it was a result of a newspaper article that talked about the office market in very, very doomsday type terms. And I just got a little bit annoyed about it because I know better. And so I wrote this article, and I think it resonated to a lot of people. But to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, the shock that caused the problems in the office market started with the pandemic. I mean, during the pandemic, everything stopped. I mean, you just didn't have people going to the office. They were shut down. They were doing work at home. And they got to like that, actually, in a certain way. They didn't have to commute to the office anymore. And, of course, then when things started to open up, they sort of pushed back against going in. And they had some economic power to do that because a lot of people, the market was very, very tight. And a lot of people said, hey, I don't want to go in 5 days a week. Maybe I'll go in 1, 2, 3 days a week at most, but give me the rest of the time to work at home. The employers couldn't say very much because it was soon after the pandemic started to ease up. And because of the tight labor market, they knew that the employees, if they didn't get their way, could walk to another company because of the tight labor market. So they went along with it. But since then, things have started to open up quite a bit. They started talking about different versions of the work week. For instance, they were called hybrid, for instance. The hybrid versions were anywhere from full remote to 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week at most. And it varied along those lines. As time goes on and as the pandemic threat lessens, in fact it's gone away, people are changing their mind. The office people are changing their mind because they feel that there's an awful lot of reasons why people should be in the office. And of course, there's the unspoken reason that people are probably goofing off at home. In any event, market has improved to a certain extent that BlackRock, for instance, which is a very large company, has just ordered their people to go back to the office 4 days a week. Now, they might increase that to 5 days a week in some future day, but right now, that's a pretty strong statement. And a lot of people are following that. In essence, it's a lot easier for people who work in the suburbs to commute and go to work. So they have been coming back a lot faster than the city people, which is a lot more difficult. So, but that will change. I think it's changing slowly. It might take a year or two before it really settles down. But I think that it's going to happen. They have certain short-term problems in the office market right now. Valuations of office properties have gone down. According to Moody's, 84% of the office refinancings will be expiring within the next year. And that will cause a problem in terms of people having to scrounge around to find money to continue their property. But that's short term. I think that will work out. One of the problems is that, actually one of the opportunities in the office market is that it's a big market. There's 11.2 billion square feet of office in this country. And with a combined value of $2.5 trillion, it's a big, big market. And a big market like that takes a long time to turn around. When I say a long time, maybe I'm talking about 2 to 4 years. And that's what I expect, that it will be completely turned around in that time. It's like a large cruise ship. You know, they're out in the sea and they have to make a turn, and it takes a long, long time, miles, to make that turn. The same thing with the office market. It will improve. There is a lot of obsolescence in the office market. Some say there's about 30% of the market is outmoded. And that mainly includes what they call B and C class offices. A class offices are still very much in demand. They have modern amenities. They are pleasant places to go to work in. And they're going to be around. They're not building them as fast as they should right now because of the economy, but they'll start improving. In fact, the improvements will probably reflect what they've learned during the pandemic, in the sense that they will try to open up the amount of space that's available to an employee. That has been decreasing slowly over the years in terms of the amount of space per employee. But some people are thinking that, well, that's going to increase now because they're going to make it more attractive to go into the office, and that will mean more amenities and more openness. Now, one of the things I should mention, there are some larger issues in play. Number one, change is always going to be with us. Next month is going to be different than this month. Technical advances, innovation, shock events, economic cycles, cultural changes, they're always moving the needle in a different direction. And the other point to make is that there are very, very good reasons for people to be in an office. They have common site training, they have mentoring, they have exchange of ideas, they have innovation, there's a place to be seen for advancement, face-to-face meetings, a way for employers to judge productivity. So there are a lot of great reasons for being in the office. And right now, some of that is being taken up by things like Zoom and telephone conferencing, but it doesn't replace the office atmosphere, the office milieu. Zoom is great. It served a purpose during the pandemic, but basically it's two-dimensional. It doesn't replace the much better communication between people face-to-face. So that's it for office. I wouldn't worry about it. It's going to be coming back. It's probably going to take a few years, maybe a little bit longer. But it will adapt, it'll change, it will be better than it was before the pandemic. So don't worry about it. Okay, the next question that I get asked a lot is, what real estate asset classes are doing better than others? And that's an easy answer to me. It's multifamily residential and industrial. In fact, I think that they were doing so great that I've been spending most of my time in those categories because it's more productive for me and for my company. In terms of multifamily, it's because there's a shortage of housing. And in terms of industrial, it's mainly due to distribution warehousing for the needs of online retailing. Housing also includes single family, but not to the same extent. Industrial also includes manufacturing and self-storage, to a lesser extent, but still significant. Because of higher interest rates, there is more construction of rental units. In other words, on multifamily, you have rental units, apartments, you have condos, you have townhomes, and in some cases they throw in cluster housing for that. But basically, because of the interest rates, there's a tendency for people to build more rental units because they know they can move them, and the financial sources are more congenial to them in terms of putting their money into the project. So one of the problems we've had, things are going very good in those two categories. One of the problems we've had is the cost of construction. That has actually been worse about a year ago, I'd say, when we had the problems with the chain of the supply chain. But it's slowed down some, but it still demands attention because a project can get out of hand as if prices do rise too fast. I did a podcast on development about a year ago, and so I talked about this quite a lot. When something is going good, you don't have to talk about ways to fix it because it's just running full steam ahead by itself. So let's go on to the next question. The next question is a little bit more perplexing. Do you expect a recession soon? And I don't want to get morbid or anything like this because I really don't expect one soon. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I have a heavy background in economics, and I'm on some boards that actually have economics and business acumen as a main criteria for being on those boards. But the more that I know about the subject, the more that I am reluctant to make decisions. It's just like the economists are constantly saying, well, we're going to have this, and we're going to have that, and it's going to be for the next 6 months or whatever. They have to look at those statements after that 6-month period and say, gee, we were wrong. Let's make a new one. So, you can get a feel for what's happening. You can predict to a certain extent, but you can't be very, very specific. Prior to the pandemic, the economy was particularly extraordinarily healthy. They had low inflation, things were sailing along. That was all put on ice with the pandemic. Everything slowed down to a trickle. Growth plummeted. Stimulus money went out to businesses to try to keep things going, not to beef them up, but to keep them going. And that helped a great deal. But as the pandemic waned, the stimulus payments unnecessarily continued. They just continued on and on and on. And it was kind of unhealthy. That plus the heavy fiscal spending by government with new programs overheated the economy. Guess where inflation came from? Remember also that we had supply chain problems as well. So it was too much money chasing too few goods. It's simple as that. So you have too much money in the economy, too few products, and inflation's going to come along and be strong. Well, the Federal Reserve kept increasing interest rates to slow down the economy, but it had an uneven effect. Employment, I should say, was still strong. Both fiscal spending and consumer spending was too high. And so higher interest rates had very little impact. In fact, they kept raising them, saying, well, this next step is going to do it, but it didn't do it, so we got to go another step. And right now if you want a mortgage, for instance, it's somewhere in the high 6% range. And just to digress a tiny bit, though, I can remember mortgage rates during my lifetime, not that long ago, actually, at the 8 to 8.5% range. And people thought that was normal. As time goes on and this 6% range starts to sink in, I think people will be more comfortable with it. When it first comes in and when it's first going up, that's what the problem is. But they'll start to feel more comfortable. They would like to be better, like half of that, but that's not going to happen anytime soon because the Federal Reserve is in a bind. I think what we're talking about right now is about, in terms of the inflation rate, I think is about 4.9% or something like that. It had been higher, but I mean 4.9% is not good, simply because they try to keep it below 2% to keep it in check, and this is way above that thing. With the higher rates, of course, it's affected the economy in different ways. I mean, employment's still strong, spending's still strong, but high-ticket items like housing and automotive financing have been particularly hard hit. And as time goes on, if we have to keep rising interest rates to bring it down, or bring the spending down, which will actually be just as good, it's going to be going up from here. Consumers know that something is wrong. Consumer sentiment has been slowly declining, little by little, and GDP growth in the last 2 quarters has been kind of tepid, about 1.1%, 1.2%, and that's not a good economy. A good economy is somewhere around 2.5 to 3.5%. So we got a long way to go there. So for most of the year, funny because for most of the last year, the majority of economists were predicting a recession. That's last year, okay? Then it became the first quarter of this year. It didn't happen. Then they were talking about the latter part of this year. They're not even sure about that. So some economists, and not very many, but there's some economists, are saying that we're not even going to have a recession. So who knows? There are so many things that have to be straightened out. If they aren't straightened out, we're just going to get slower and slower, and that's a problem. It reminds me of an economy we had a number of years ago called stagflation. That's a combination of stagnation and inflation. Unless we get our spending under control, the Fed will have to keep raising interest rates to moderate inflation. It will be a spiral down to an uneven, unbalanced economy that could have been avoided easily if we really tried. I hope that answered that question. That's a tough one. It's a tough one to put things in perspective. It doesn't have anything definite in the answer. It could go on. It could break. But again, we have to get our fiscal house in order, and that will help a great deal. So that concludes my answering of questions today. But I will, as I said before, I will pick it up again the next time around. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be glad to put them on the list to answer. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.